This meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and that you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members joining the meeting remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raise hand icon to indicate when you'd like to speak. Please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Moving on to the agenda, we go to agenda item 1, which is attendance and apologies. Chris, do you have any apologies, please?
I have, Chair. Apologies from Councillors Carl Gordon, Ron Burnett and John James.
Thank you, Chris. We move on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Members, do you have any declarations to make? No? Okay, thank you. We move on to agenda item 3, which is minutes to the General Licensing Committee 10th of the 2nd, 22, which is on pages 3 to 6. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Anything to raise? Raise? No? Okay, we take them as approved. Agenda item 4, workload updates, quarters 3 and 4 for October 2021 to March 2022. These are on pages 7 to 20 on your agenda. I now ask Claire Howells, the Team Manager, Licensing and Trading Standards. Could you please deliver the report?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share my screen. And if someone could confirm they could see my screen, that would be great.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So the report that's being presented at General Licensing Committee this morning is a workload update in relation to activities undertaken by the team during quarters 3 and 4, that being October 21 to March 2022. General Licensing Committee covers the following functions: Hackney carriage and private hire licensing, scrap metal, charity collections, street trading, smoke-free legislation, animal establishment licensing and sex establishment licensing. The first area we're going to look at this morning is in relation to Hackney carriage and private hire licensing, and I think it's fair to say from the contents of the report that the second half of the year has been extremely busy. During the 2 reporting quarters, the team have received and dealt with 33 complaints in relation to Hackney carriage and private hire licensing. Complaints received included disputes in relation to fares charged, incorrect operator signage, allegations of inappropriate behaviour and speeding. All complaints have been investigated and dealt with appropriately. A complaint was received from the member of the public that the inside of a vehicle was taped together with masking tape. An officer from the team called the vehicle into the licensing office to inspect, and it was found that the driver had put in place a safety screen between the front and rear seats as a means of helping to prevent the transmission of COVID-19, excuse me, and had taped the screen in place as opposed to fitting the screen correctly. The driver was given words of advice and took immediate steps to rectify the issue. In quarter 4, the team undertook a multi-agency operation with officers from the DVSA, that being the Driver Vehicle Standards Agency. A total of 29 vehicles were stopped in transit and were directed to a stop point so that checks could be carried out by the licensing officers present and the DVSA officers. 2 licensed vehicles were found to have a defective tyre, and the licensed drivers of both vehicles were issued with a £100 fine and 3 penalty points added to their DVLA driving licences. 1 vehicle was found to have 2 defective tyres and has been summoned to court for the offences. As of today, we've received no further update. A 4th vehicle was found to have excessive window tinting, contrary to DVSA MOT guidelines, and the driver was fined £50 and required to remove the tinting from the vehicle at the stop point before the vehicle could be used. We hope to continue with the multi-agency operations going forward, and we are building relationships with the DVSA team to make this a more frequent occurrence. There's been 11 separate issues that have been dealt with by means of Chief Officer report in quarters 3 and 4, which included 5 reports in relation to late vehicle renewals. All 5 renewals were granted by the Chief Officer. A report was also considered in relation to an application to renew a Hackney Carriage and private hire driver's licence. As part of the process, a check is carried out on the applicant's DVLA driver's licence history. The check revealed that the driver had 6 penalty points on his DVLA driver's licence for failure to give information as to identify the driver. As per the Council's policy, a decision in relation to the application could not be made at officer level, and hence why the matter was referred to Chief Officer for decision. The Chief Officer considered the report and referred the application to Licensing Panel for determination. The Licensing Panel was convened, considered the report and the explanation given by the driver, and the panel made the decision to grant the licence for a 1-year period as opposed to the usual 3. There have been 4 applications in relation to Hackney Carriage and private hire licences determined by the Licensing Panel during the reporting period, one as detailed above. The Licensing Panel granted 2 applications for drivers which were outside of the scope of the Council's current Hackney Carriage and private hire policy. An application was also refused by the Licensing Panel due to a conviction disclosed on the required enhanced DBS certificate. In relation to scrap metal, the team received 1 complaint during quarters 3 and 4. Information was received that collectors were operating in an identified area, and the allegation was made that they were taking personal possessions out of a resident's garden. Theft is a matter for the police, but if details were requested and if available, officers could check vehicle registration numbers so that checks could be carried out to see if the collectors were licensed by the authority as required. To date, officers haven't received any further information, so the complaint has been unable to be progressed. There's been no complaints in relation to charity collections. And in terms of street trading, we've had 1 complaint during the reporting period. The team received contact from an existing trader querying if an ice cream van operating in the area was licensed. Again, the team requested vehicle registration details in order for checks to be carried out, but to date that information hasn't been forthcoming, therefore an investigation is unable to progress. There has been 1 application for a street trading consent that has been determined at Licensing Panel during the 2 quarters. This is due to the application being contrary to the Council's current street trading policy that covers the borough. The application was granted after consideration by the panel. There's been no complaints received during the reporting period in relation to smoke-free legislation. In terms of animal establishment licensing, the team have received 13 complaints in relation to illegal dog breeding during the second half of the 21-22 year. Contact has been made with all 13 and written advice and guidance issued as appropriate. Warning letters have also been issued where evidence has been able to be collected that individuals have met the criteria to be licensed and have bred without the necessary permissions. The licensing officer visited 2 of the 13 premises at the request of the individuals who refuted the allegation to view the properties where illegal breeding is alleged to have taken place. 2 complaints in relation to illegal dog breeding have been referred to the relevant home authority for investigation. This is where residents of Toolvine have made contact with the team regarding puppies that they have bought from other local authority areas and have raised concerns as to whether or not the properties were licensed. So the information has been passed on to the relevant home authorities. There's also been multi-agency work with trading standards in relation to information sharing and the Council's council tax team, where we have details to obtain details of home occupants where we've only received brief addresses in relation to allegations of illegal dog breeding. Where contact has not been made following advice and guidance sent by the team, follow-up contact will be made and the premises will be monitored going forward. There's been no complaints in relation to sex establishment licensing. As many of you will be aware, that the team is currently taken back the function of animal health and welfare. Since 2018, the Council's function in relation to animal health and welfare has been undertaken by Powys Council. A report was presented to the Executive Member in March 22 to seek approval to bring the function back in-house from the 1st of July 2022, when the Council's service level agreement with Powys Council ended. The recommendation to bring the service back in-house was approved, and it has been agreed that the Powys team will support the Torfaen team with the transition period for a further 3 months until the end of September 2022. Members will therefore be receiving updates in relation to animal health and welfare work undertaken by the licensing team going forward. The function will be shared across the licensing and trading standards team, and recruitment is currently underway for another officer to join the team in order to build resilience. The team have already begun to deal with complaints in relation to animal health and welfare as part of the transition period with support of officers from Powys. 2 complaints have been actioned during the reporting period in relation to unhoused poultry and concerns over the potential spread of avian influenza. A complaint was also received in relation to concerns over the welfare of a dog who had allegedly been left in an unoccupied residential property. Information was gathered by the officer who received the complaint and shared with the police and RSPCA for action. There has been no further update in relation to the matter. In terms of overall work results, we have an activity report which is attached at Appendix A of your papers. As you can see, the number of service requests and business advice has continued to see an increase, and this is evidenced in the activity report. Due to competing priorities and an increased demand on the team within all areas of the licensing regime, officers have not been able to achieve set targets for the year in relation to the number of inspections carried out. As you are aware, the team lost a member of staff who moved to another local authority at the beginning of September 2021, which resulted in only 1 member of staff in the team from September to January 2022. That vacancy was successfully filled in January, and training for the new member of the team is ongoing. Please be assured that where complaints or intelligence has been received in relation to breaches of legislation or policy, this has been followed up by officers and action taken as appropriate. In relation to policy, on the 7th of October 2021, the committee approved the revised version of the Council's policy in relation to hackney carriage and private hire licences, following the implementation of the Department for Transport statutory taxi and private hire standards and the Welsh Government harmonisation standards. This policy became effective from the 1st of November 2021. The Council's current policy in relation to street trading has been in place since 2009. It is the intention of the team to start the process of reviewing this policy in the forthcoming months, and members will be consulted as part of that process and will have the opportunity to provide any comments that they wish. There has been no complaints against service during the reporting period. It is therefore recommended that the committee note and comment on the contents of this report and note the activity report for October 2021 to March 2022. Thank you, Chair. That's my report.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks once again to the team for everything you do. I know how you work for such a small team. But members, have you got any questions? No? Anybody in the chair? Oh, I've got Stephen Evans, Councillor Evans.
Thanks, Chair. Due to the hot weather, we had an increase regarding animal welfare. That was a question I was going to ask.
Not that we've seen to date. Never say never. But no, we haven't received any increase in complaints in relation to animal welfare over the last couple of weeks.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Parish.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to ask the same question as Steve, but can I ask you about disputes in relation to fares charged? That hasn't come up that often, really, has it? But is that a new thing you're finding?
It is, yes. So in relation to fares, in terms of a Hackney carriage vehicle, so these are the black vehicles with the yellow roundels and the yellow door signs and the plates. These are the ones that can park on the rank and be hailed on the street. They have meters, so the fare is set. So the drivers can only charge the meter price or less. In relation to private hire fares, we've got no control over them. The fares set are determined by the private hire operator. So what we always have advised and will advise going forward is that if somebody makes a booking via a private hire operator, the fare is agreed at the time of making the booking. So then people know what is going to be charged and the fare is agreed before the journey is undertaken. You are correct, Councillor Parish, this isn't something that comes up very often. We have seen an influx over the last few months. The reasons why, I'm not sure, but again, any complaints we come in, we always give the advice that going forward, please agree the fare before the journey is undertaken.
Thank you. Can I say that regarding the animal health and welfare, I'm glad there's somebody going to be employed to do that, because I think the burden that you and your colleagues have got at the moment is really a big task, you know, and the staffing numbers, it's worrying to me. And I'll be glad when you've got some more licensing officers, you know, in the team. Hope you agree with that. I'm not trying to put you down. I think you do a marvellous job, but I think it is worrying, really, that, you know, the number of staff have to cope with, well, you know what the burden's like. I mean, it's been heavy for years, but I think it's got worse at the moment. And of course, COVID didn't help, did it?
Thank you, Councillor Parish.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parish. I totally agree with you there and everything you've said. Councillor Horler?
Basically, it's just to put my viewpoint on the reason you're getting so many complaints about the taxi fares. As a non-driver who uses taxis regularly, what used to be a £5 fare 12 months ago is now an £8 or £10 fare. And it does seem to, unless you ask, it can be either the 8 or the 10, and that's just on a local run. So I just think it's to do with the sheer rise in the petrol prices and that kind of thing, leading to a huge spike in what the taxis are charging. I would like to ask, is that reflected in the meter charges?
Okay, so in terms of the meter charges, as of a few days ago, we have received a request from the trade to review the meter charges. In terms of the meter charges, we can't, it's the trade that have to ask for an increase. We have received that in the last few days, so we will be working on that with the trade in the next couple of weeks, and we will be coming to committee with a report because we have to go out for consultation and get committee approval. So that will be some work that you will be seeing coming forward in the next month or so.
I see. Thank you. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Councillor Horler. I've got Councillor Clarkson.
Yeah, it's just building on the point that you raised, Claire, about people asking for a price when they actually book a taxi. That's obviously going to be a change of behaviour because people aren't used to doing that. I was wondering if comms could get involved and maybe do a little bit of publicity that we could share around on social media just to sort of update the advice on bookings.
Yep, that's certainly something I could look into, no problem at all. Thank you for your comments.
And thanks, Councillor Clarkson. Anybody else like to ask a question? Anybody in the chamber? No. Do you just put your hand back up, Councillor Clarkson?
I did, yeah. It's just on the animal welfare side. I think we all appreciate that this is going to bring a considerable amount of work possibly back into the council, and it's a change because most people are still thinking that Powys are the authority that deal with these things. Strays is an issue that comes up quite a lot. Sheep, horses, that type of thing. Currently, it's only contact the police if they're a problem on the highway. Is that now going to come back over to Torfaen, that if there are stray sheep and horses on the highway, that they report to animal welfare?
So strays are a matter that's dealt with by environmental health. So unfortunately, I can't sort of go into that because I'm not familiar with the process. At the moment, we're in the transition period with Powys, so we're helping us, but we will be putting comms out to alert people to, contact us as opposed to Powys with any concerns. We've set up a specific email address, so that will be going out via comms as well, so people can come direct to us. Our remit is restricted in terms of animal health because obviously we can only deal with what we can deal with under the legislation, but now is our chance to build up working relationship with partners such as APHA, DEFRA, etc. And yeah, we will be doing a joined up approach going forward and helping where we can.
No, that sounds great, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Clarkson. If nobody else got a question to ask, the recommendations on page 12 of your agenda. Can I ask members whether you agree the recommendations? All those for? Anybody against? You can say so. If you're against, I can't really see everybody on the screen. Or anybody abstaining? Okay then, thank you members. We go on to agenda item 5, which is the date of the next meeting. For information, the next meeting is scheduled to take place on the 24th of November, 2022. So this is the end of this meeting. Thanks members for attending.
Thank you all.